all the things that you do.
All right, team, I need to be very, very harsh on time for this last presentation because at 3 o'clock we are stopping, we're going outside and we're having Christmas drinks, and that is the end of the story. Just a bit of a heads up too though, our last presentation today, I would like as many people in the room as possible because we have a virgin presenter as our last presenter today, and that human being needs as much support as we can muster for him as he gets up here. So I'd like to see as many people in the room for that. It could be humorous, it could be absolutely fantastic, and I'm looking at that person now. Right, now RIU Resurgence. Do you remember what I said at the start of the day? What's it all about? It's about connecting people. Everything we do here is about connecting people. It's connecting you as investors to companies that have potential for you. It's about connecting the companies back to you. It's about connecting our resources companies with the companies that go around the outside, our drillers and all these interesting people, and educating you as well. So our first company that's on stage in our final session today fits into that category of companies that are here to assist and make our resources companies work even better, stronger, faster. It's kind of called continuous improvement in the world that I come from. So Richard is already up on stage. This is Richard Millington, everyone. He is the Data Solutions Technical Specialist for Seequent. And his talk today, all about getting extra value from your exploration data set. So if you're in a resources company and you're in here right now, you're in the right place because this guy's got the information that you need to allow you to make better, quicker decisions. How are they going to do it better? Richard, that's over to you. Would you please make him welcome, everyone?
Today, innovative geoscience workflows helping unlock Australia's critical mineral potential. So just a privacy statement, just saying things that I might speak of aren't always going to be exactly correct. So what are innovative geoscience workflows? So we believe that they are tackling geoscience data problems. So currently you might have data that's siloed across niche applications. It's very little consistency with historic data. It could come from a multitude of different file formats, sometimes no more than a scan of a paper copy of a drill log. In any event, successive geologists and organisations may have to revisit the way they describe core, named rock units over the years, as things change. The sheer volume of data can be overwhelming. Most likely it's going to be stored in some place. You might have 40, 50,000 holes of historic data work. It's not all going to be perfectly structured in a file format or in a system that you can use. Data audit trail, where is the history, the validation of that data? Various teams have collected the data over the years. Different geologists do different things. Good geologists, bad geologists exist. I don't know what one do I fall into. I'm not too sure. It could be muddy the waters of what's important and what's not. So integrating that data as well, how do we use that? Connecting the geoscience data across a mine cycle and analysing the data, which is obviously the most important thing, right? Trying to determine where those next big deposits and discoveries are. And access to data. If it's on a hard drive that's on someone's computer, it's not readily available for the entire team to be able to use and access. So at Seequent, we think that Seequent Evo is that innovation. So Seequent Evo is a cloud-based ecosystem which enables industries to collaborate and manage geoscience data in a single space. We want to connect the greatest minds with all available solutions to solve the world's substrate challenges. We can collaborate faster, easier, and at any scale. Create greater transcending barriers between the subsurface and the built environments. So what does that mean for us as explorers? So we want to generate a system where we can integrate our data, together across multiple platforms. So it encompasses our existing applications. So at Seequent, we're the owners of Leapfrog, Central, Oasis Montage, MX Deposit, and we want you to be able to work seamlessly between those products with your data set. It's a connected ecosystem of a solution which enable our customers to work seamlessly across their workflows. In order to solve problems in moments, we are offering our customers an open and connected solution. Seequent Evo will enable seamless connections with world-leading geoscience and engineering solutions. So not only do we want connection between our own products, we want to be able to use third-party applications as well as our own emerging products that come together. So we believe that Seequent Evo will treat your data responsibly in a safe and secure environment, so with the highest data security standards. So being cloud hosted, it will have an ISO 27001 accreditation. We can regularly back up and maintain that data set. It offers easy and flexible, scalable tools for the evolving challenges. The cloud can scale to any size, so if you're a small junior up to a mid-tier operator, the cloud can scale to those requirement needs. So you only ever pay for what you need and what you use. Our products such as MX Deposit is a database and login solution that also is scalable with monthly subscriptions, so you can use it during your drill seasons, but then obviously you don't need to renew in times of quiet periods over Christmas and things like that. It allows you to enable access anywhere in the world, so being a cloud-hosted solution, through web browsers, through APIs, we can connect that data with different products, different consultants and different teams. And with projects being spanned globally these days, we can have the ability to be working in Canada with an office here in Perth, in Africa, in America, and as many of the presentations that we've heard over the last couple of days, companies have projects all over the world. It will save time, it will promote and enhance cross-function collaboration, and it will create better efficiencies for the way exploration mining companies will work. So, in practicality, what does that mean? So here we can see we've got what we call the Seequent drilling workflow. So using our products in a seamless cycle of test, evaluation, back in, test, evaluation to get to better decisions and better answers quicker, so you can move forward. Allowing explorers to take advantage of the current critical mineral boom. So you don't want to be lagging on your projects when you want to be able to push forward, in a time right now when there's a demand. We can improve collaboration, so projects are globally. So like I said, offices here in Perth versus projects elsewhere in the world. We can iterate and work on our models, updating models as new data is generated. The auditability of our data and access of the data to key stakeholders can increase funding prospects. So having the ability to be able to give our data in one form or another to investors and stakeholders. Within the critical mineral boom, we're experiencing a new type of investor, so tech investors from the US. They want to be able to see models and do different things, more than, say, the traditional investors here in the room. Connected workflows and interconnected systems allow for a data to flow to decisions to be made on the most up-to-date information, and allowing data to move seamlessly between geology and engineering teams, and also allows for real-time updates. So we can see the different products here and how they fit into our sort of continuous model loop of our Seequent drill workflow. So what does that look in practicality? So here we have a video of MX Deposit, so that's our cloud-hosted database solution. So a geologist has come in and having a look at a geology log. From there, they can have a look at the samples. So we can see we've got assay results back for a lithium project. So we can do our QA/QC, we can make sure that they're valid. We can generate a strip log within that system. So we're starting to put together what does the geology and the assay results look like. So we can see here we've got a pegmatite, coarse grain pegmatite, and with lithium oxide associated with that. So from there, I'm happy, I want to push that further into a 3D modelling package. With our integrated systems, from here I can do a direct export into our 3D modelling package, Leapfrog Geo. So selecting the holes, and from there, I can push it to our Seequent cloud hosting sort of server. So in our 3D modelling package, we can now see there's, I know that there's drilling here down dip on my pegmatite. So just using the, being able to refresh my drill hole database from the cloud, it can update. And with the power of implicit modelling that we can do in Leapfrog Geo, we can see that our pegmatite model will automatically adjust to the latest data input into the system. So we can see there we've now got an extension down dip of our pegmatite. So real time, updating fast, making quicker, better decisions using integrated products. The second one, we show efficiencies using Imago, which we have set up in our booth out here. So core imagery has come in and we're able to generate an average colorization from the imagery. So we can see from our core, highlighting areas of transition. There was a vein also in through there. And we can see that within our 3D model that there's some sort of trend that's coming through our data set. Within Leapfrog, we can just model against that. So, actually, firstly, we can double check it. So by clicking on the drill hole, it's going to open up Imago, which shows me that core imagery. So if this data is generated in Canada, Africa, whatever, and you're modelling here in Perth, you're able to have connection to those rocks. I can select that interval within my drill hole. I can assign it to whatever lithology unit I believe it is. So in this case, a vein or a pegmatite. And then once I hit save, that model is going to reiterate and make those changes automatically. So again, having connections of our workflows of data, from anywhere in the world, I can be generating different models. And from there, if I want to publish those things for investors, stakeholders, shareholders within our product, in our project. So from here, I'm able to push models up to our other product called Central, which is a cloud-hosted solution where we can audit trail, data trail of how those models are generated. So again, making sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Just me fixing my spelling. So that just pushes seamlessly up to the cloud. And from there, we can access that from a browser. So we can generate a public scene view. So for investors, we could mail this out to you to say, hey, we've just completed our new drilling. This is our model update. This is what we're looking at. This relates to ASX release. And we believe that this is, where we can see the advancement of this project. So this can be viewed through your web browser. So you don't have to have any software knowledge or licensing to manage these. And I invite you, if you have a smartphone or a tablet, if you scan that QR code, you'll be able to whip up a model itself and spin it around on your phone or on a tablet. So I'll give that a second. And it just shows, if companies are willing to share that data with you guys, you're able to use it, view it, and make educated decisions from it. So in summary, what do I think our Seequent Evo will provide? It's going to improve efficiencies and optimizations across workflows for subsurface technology. So you're going to just see improvements in the ability to get model updates out, resource estimates out, make decisions faster. Allows for collaborative workflow. So having integrated solutions allows teams to work together, cross disciplines, geology, metallurgy, engineering. An open connected ecosystem allows for substrate data management, analysis and visualization. So having well-managed geoscience data in a cloud helps future-proof your business. Not only does this mean you can revisit exploration sites easily in the future, but also as the industry moves towards using ML technology to automate processes or reduce uncertainty, you are better equipped to take advantage of this technology. And increasingly, the shift from simple cloud-based to fully embracing SaaS offerings is less siloed, more versatile for your architecture of data and projects going forward. Thank you very much. And if you want to come chat, come see us at the booth.
Right on. Rich, wait, boys, up you get. Quickly, I haven't got all day. You've got 25 seconds. Move, now, up here on the stage. Quickly. It's Richard, stand in the middle. You really have 25 seconds. I'm counting down now. 24, 23, stand up in a line. 22, let's see if I can do 3 things at once. It wasn't your mother that's asked me to take this photograph, but there we go. It's unusual to have the whole team together in one space. All right, boys, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful, well done. Good to put your hands together for the team at Seequent. Thank you very much, guys. Well done. Good to have you all up on stage in one place. All right. next bite of the cherry, my investors in this room. And this is a company that's based in my hometown, so it must be good to start with. We're going to the goldfields. And the fellow that's in charge of it, he is goldfields born and bred. Cut him, he'll bleed gold, won't you, sir? He will bleed gold. So this is Graham McGarry. He is a managing director of Beacon Minerals. Now, Beacon's interesting because they're not an explorer. They're doing things. They have a gold treatment plant at Geordie that's 70 k's out of Kalgoorlie, and that's been going for 5 years. And you're also mining at McPherson's in Coolgardie. So 2 opportunities. Would you please make him very welcome, everyone?
I'd like to thank RIU for the opportunity to present today, and Stuart, Jackson, Chrissy, and the ladies at the front counter who help me when I get into technical problems. So thank you. We're an ASX listed company and have been for quite a few years. Jeff Greenall and I got involved in the company in 2012, and we became directors, and we have been directors since. Disclaimer, I think all of you have seen enough of disclaimers, so you don't need to look at those. The corporate summary is fairly straightforward, a lot of numbers. On the left-hand side, the cash on hand at the end of September was $18.82 million. And they are the numbers, sorry, at the end of September was 18.82. At the end of June, cash was down, but there's quite a few ounces at the Perth Mint. Some people say to you, you hold them at the Perth Mint at the end of June to defer income tax. Later, post the year, we sold the bulk of that gold that was held there, and that did affect our earnings and did affect our revenue, but it'll be positive in this year. In October this year, we did a forward sale, and we have done forward sales in the past, and normally you do forward sales when you borrow money. We took advice from Sean Russo of Noah's Rule in Sydney in April, and he said the other reason to do forward sales is to underpin a dividend, and obviously in October we're looking at a dividend for our shareholders, of which the directors own quite a bit. And so we did a forward sale, a lot of criticism, and also a lot of positives from a couple of my close advisors. And they said that, you know, it does underpin your revenue, and we underpinned the next 7 or 8 months, so 65% of our revenue, and left 35% unhedged. The gold price within 2 days of doing the hedge at 3,080 was 3,160, so I was looking a bit stupid, to be honest. But anyway, it's come back now, and we closed out our first hedge and picked up a cheque for $130,000. And we're still in the money at the moment, but that's not the purpose of the hedging. The purpose of the hedging is to underpin the income for the next 6 or 8 months. So I'm pretty relaxed about that. The share ownership is essentially directors. There's not directors and employees aren't over 20% of the company, but there's a wide spread of West Australian shareholders, and we have 3,000 shareholders, but I would say 2,600 of them are West Australian shareholders, and also from Kalgoorlie and places like that. The next one's just a bar chart that doesn't really show the full picture, but our ore milled is quite consistent. It's now settled in at 200 to 220,000 tonne a quarter, or just under 900,000 tonne a year, and that's a pretty good achievement. The production won't vary a lot, but in terms of tonnes, a lot of people want us to get our ounce profile up, and we'd like to get our ounce profile up also, but it's not that easy. If we were to expand the plant in this environment, it would cost a lot of money for what we've already spent, and we're not sure that that's the right decision, and it's not that easy. So our objective, which we've announced, is to try and get higher grade material into the mill to increase the ounce profile, but really what we're trying to do is maintain our margins. So it's no good producing gold at close to what you're selling it for. That's just getting a suntan. What we're in the game for is to produce gold at a profit and have a clear margin. And I'd like to thank Argonaut. They do a very good coverage of Beacon. They're one of the few, if not the only one, that does a coverage. So perhaps we're not exciting enough, but I will talk about a bit of excitement later. Our full year financial highlights is historic and have been affected by by the factors I previously mentioned. Costs are going up, but to some extent they have stabilised. So fuel is obviously a big cost for an open pit operation, but labour is still far in excess of all the other costs. So we're all well aware of the problems in the labour market, particularly in Western Australia and particularly in the mining industry. I'm not sure how it's going to be fixed. And next year we're going to start bringing people in from Timor-Leste. So that's that bar graph I just spoke about. Our return to shareholders, which is important if you own shares. I'm a bit of a believer in the old school. The business A has to be profitable, then B should pay some dividends to shareholders. Now, whether that's the right approach or not, I'm not sure. I do have some doubts at times, but fully franked dividends appeal to me, and I try to put myself in the shoes of my other shareholders and say, well, if we can pay even a modest fully franked dividend and retain a fair bit of money for growth, that's a fair result. We'll keep looking at the capital structure. Now, the easiest way for us next year to look at growth in the share price is to do a consolidation of the shares and do a buyback. And we have mentioned that, and that will be looked at appropriate time. Yesterday, we declared a small fully franked dividend. I think that our dividends now total in the last 4 to 5 years, $42 million, I think is the number. So that's not something to be sneezed at when it's a small company or small to modest scale producer. So I think for people that have superannuation funds and have, like myself, have a self-managed superannuation fund, a fully franked dividend going into your superannuation fund is quite attractive. You're also looking for growth in the price of the shares, the value of the shares, and we haven't been able to put that on the table, but I can assure you we'll be trying to do that next year. Our main focus to some extent has been acquiring other properties. My original job was with Consolidated Goldfields, which is now Goldfields Australia, and they have been very successful over many years, having acquired St Ives 24 or 5 years ago. When I was with them many years ago, their policy was to primarily acquire mines. They started in the mineral sands in Western Australia, and they've grown into quite a big company just in Western Australia alone. But that's been their policy, and to some extent it's our policy. The criticism some 2 years ago was you haven't got ore reserves. And that was a fair criticism. But as we built up the cash, paid a dividend, we've acquired McPherson's Reward. We then went on and acquired the Gecko project. We acquired a 90% interest in Maximus. Maximus has mining leases, approved mining leases, and a portfolio of gold resources. We acquired, for the first time, some exploration licenses from Ora Banda Mining in July, and the deal was consummated in July 23. And just recently, we got involved in buying the Mount Doma project, which is a small, high-grade gold mine, some 150 k's, 140 k's west of our Geordie operation. The main component in that statement there is resolution of the 6 pending applications in Timor-Leste. We've been in Timor-Leste since 2016 in a modest way initially because they didn't have a mineral code. We thought in 2016 they were going to get one, they didn't. 2019 they had another go, didn't get up. Finally it got up in 2021. And we've been over there several times, not a lot, it's easy to get to, and you can get there in 6 or 8 hours if you get the right flights. It's 1 hour ahead on the time zone. The internet connections are reasonable. They're not perfect, but they're reasonable. So it's quite an easy place to operate in with no infrastructure, but they now have a code. And next Thursday they'll announce the groups who will be awarded some of the 49 concessions are on offer. We've been invited, Beacon have been invited to attend the award ceremony on the 6th of December. So at that point in time, it's in the public arena, their schedule. They then give you 2 weeks to accept the award, and then you go into some negotiations, which primarily will be about what the free carried equity is for the government company. or the government entity, which is called Murak Ray. We took delivery of a new excavator. We run a mining operation, and essentially with Komatsu equipment now. We don't use contractors other than where we think it's beneficial to the company. We commenced McPherson's Reward officially on the 1st of November. It started a bit before that. It'll be a difficult job, mainly because it's quartz veins, and we will have to control the mining of the ore very carefully. So it's a challenge, and that is one reason why we only paid quite a modest dividend yesterday. The Gecko tenements have had 2 previous failed operators, and the reason they mainly failed wasn't the lack of gold, it was because of the high inflow of water. And the last operator did approach us to take water, but he didn't have all the licences in place to be able to pump the water 16 kilometres to our mining operation or our treatment operation. So therefore, when the opportunity came up to buy it, we bought the tenements and or the tenement, which is 1 mining lease and a miscellaneous licence. And we're going through the throes now of getting the approval to develop a pipeline 16 kilometres to pump the water to our to our Geordie operation. We're not short of water at Geordie. We have 23 bores in a paleo channel, and we're all operating them, but water is not, you can't run a plant without water. So the Gecko operation will provide us with a water source long term. The Lady Ida tenements are part of what's known as Acquisition A, and Acquisition A involved buying exploration licences from Ora Banda. And these tenements are very interesting, and the lease transfer is imminent. So we've paid the stamp duty, and the leases will be in our name, if not now, but very shortly. That enables them to complete, we've already done the exploration work, in terms of the desktop exploration work. The Monitor prospect is the first prospect that we will drill. We'll probably drill that in April because it is in a conservation or a gazetted conservation area, and that's not easy. Anyone that's listened to Gina Reinhardt for the last 5 years will understand that this West Australian government has a large quarry on its hands, but it's not administering it all that well. The Mount Diamond project, we'll commence drilling that in the first quarter. That's quite an easy one to drill. There is no conservation or potential conservation park there, or to the west. There's some very beautiful country, and I support the grounds that there's a large banded iron formations there, and I've driven through them several times. A great area, and there shouldn't be any mining there for the right reasons. So we see there's two opportunities in the first 3 or 4 months of next year to deliver some exploration results for our shareholders. I'm very, very confident they'll be positive, but the job's up to us. I'd like to thank you for attending, and anyone would like to ask questions, they're welcome to come to the booth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Thank you. Thank you so much. Right, final company presentation to round out RIU Resurgence for 2023. Relatively new listing. It's done some work since listing, and now it's got a story to tell. And this is the first conference and the first presentation they have done since the IPO. So I may have been a little bit incorrect when I jumped up and said it was a Virgin presentation, because it's certainly not this man's first rodeo. He's done this a few times, but it's Cavalier's first time. So this is the first time any of us are going to hear about Cavalier. Daniel Tuffin. So Daniel has actually been responsible for many great projects. He's been around the resources industry for quite some time. He's obviously, again, jumped on board and invested in Cavalier himself. He's a co-founder. Let's find out why he thinks it's a good investment for you. Please make him welcome.
Thank you, Christina. I think I'll just seize on that last comment, invested. We are, as a board, heavily invested in this company. We believe in the company. The company is backed by a very highly competent technical team and a very experienced field team. I don't believe in generally going out and giving presentations after 2 weeks after the float. You want to have something there, you want to have some runs on the board, you want to be able to tell a story. So we've chosen now as the time to start telling that story. Oh, it is conference season. With no further ado, I'll plough on. So Cavalier Resources, Cavalier by name, not by nature. It's actually named after a local cricket club down in Coburn. You can thank our executive chairman for that one, he got that through. And we are looking to charge towards success. Again, we'll skip the disclaimer. A bit of colour, do unicorns exist? We are listed June 15, 2022. Our vision was simple, but it's never easy to achieve, becoming a self-funded exploration company. The challenge always is with that is to continue to advance. What we'll soon get to is a near-term gold mine 20 kilometres east of Leonora. And for those that follow the area, it's M&A Central, Genesis, BCN and Kin, and use that cash flow from that gold mine to advance our, what we found, lithium greenfields project on the Forestania lithium belt. Now, some 18 months have passed and there's been some water under the bridge and a few wars along the way, but we are getting there and we're closer than ever. We have 3 main projects. I'm just going to focus on the 2 today. We don't have a lot of time and that's great. Circle back, it's up online. We've got our Leonora projects, which, as I said, are near-term gold projects. That is led by our flagship gold project out there at Crawford Gold. 117,000 ounces in near-surface resource at the moment. It's 25 kilometres east of Leonora. It's a near-resource Miranda target, was discovered since listing. It's 500 metres to the north, so we've got extensions to that resource. It's open along strike and at depth. It has outstanding heap leach recoveries. We've done the column leach testing on that, so we don't need to rely on any mills in the area. We can actually do this ourselves. And we have a PFS study, which we began when we listed the company. We stopped it when we realised we had to look at heap leach. So we're fairly well advanced on that project, and that's looking at being complete in 2024 Q1. We've also got Ella's Rock. Started off just being a nickel and gold target for us. There was greenstone squeezed in between the granite. We had some great intrusives out there. And then we did 1,810 grab samples. And it came back with 3 large anomalous LCT areas and a 12-kilometre lithium strike. We followed that up with some deep ground penetrating radar. That's a mouthful. But that came back with 277 lithium targets for us to go and drill. That are extremely similar to those south at Mount Catlin. That the mob that did it is called Ultramag, and they were out there 5 years earlier. So that's giving us the same signals and targets as what Alchem has. We're on the same trend, and we're right in between Mount Holland to the north, Mount Catlin to the south. I won't get too into this. There's a whole reason why to invest. From my point of view, summarising this, I'd say, why would you invest in Cavalier? Well, I really do think this is one of those ones for self-managed super funds. We've got a really tightly held share register, as I've mentioned, and the board's really invested. You know, it would be great to get some retail in. It's very hard to buy at the market because it is so tightly held. However, should we get Crawford towards mining, and we're aiming to do that next year and start producing gold and funds, we could perhaps release dividends the following year. So following on what Beacon have done, but with a lithium greenfields play to go and exploit and explore. So you get a free hit, I guess, if it turns out. Now, this is our project timeline. Now, I'm a big believer in having these things set up and following them. Obviously, you do change course as required. A bit of background on myself. Myself and one of the other board members are co-founders of a consultancy in West Perth. That's been going for a decade and a half. So we've done a lot of this work for people prior to us actually stepping up and doing it ourselves. Everything from resources to reserves, ASX, TSX, you name it, we've done it. So one of the things that I've seen kill microcap companies after listing is a lack of story, a lack of narrative and a lack of a plan. So we listed June last year with the plan to go out and drill and expand the resource at Crawford and convert it into a PFS, which we're doing right now, and to investigate the lithium at Ella's Rock. We've done both of those things. So that's the baseline to our story. Now moving forward, we're going to look at completing, as I said, the PFS in Q1, and we're going to go drill the lithium targets at Ella's Rock. Not all 277 of them though, that's a bit too much. We've got a priority list there and we'll go out and hit those. As you can see, moving forward, the plan is pretty much to develop Crawford into mining whilst developing up our greenfields assets. So we get two different companies in one there. I won't spend too long on the corporate. I'm cognizant that it's close to beer o'clock, but that is our board there. Myself, as I said, I've established many successful companies. I did do a private venture called Rose Dam, which is 6 kilometres west of Paddington. We put about 40,000 ounces through the mill, and that helps me fund a lot of these things along with a few of our other board members. Of course, we've also got Anthony and Ranko. Anthony's on the team. You generally don't see two mining engineers on a micro cap, but given that we're looking to go mining, it's required. Anthony is still on the tools these days. I am not. We'll say management and technical, and of course Ranko comes in with all of his wealth of expertise. Corporate information, we've been bouncing around 15 cents for the last year. There's not a lot of rights or options sitting there. As I said, we're very tightly held. We've got cash on hand. We've done all our drilling, apart from the air core program to come up at Ella's. We're in a fairly comfortable situation at the moment. At this time of the year, the market's fairly terrible. We've got cash on hand, we've got stories to tell, and we've got developing to do. So that's great. If we can get through to then getting that gold mine going at Crawford, and we might sell that, we might offload it, we might mine it ourselves, toll mine, toll treat, but we've got options. Okay, so Leonora projects, I've already touched on what we've got there. Here we go, the map. So where we sit, this is obviously Genesis now. We had to recolour that the other day. We still had that as St Barbara. This is where we are as Crawford. We've got the lease where actually you can run off the black stuff straight up to our lease. It's 2 kilometres from the Leonora Laverton Road. Obviously, we're in an area where we're squeezed between Kin Mining, Genesis, M2M and a few others. We are generating some interest, obviously. Melita Creek is another project. We've got about 10 k's west of Murrin. It's the sulphide and laterite nickel target. There's some advanced targets out there, and there's some resources just to the north that are in Alliance Nickel Stable. And then we've got Gambulas North up here. We're really focusing around the historic Gambulas mine. There is probably a small resource that we can put in there fairly cheaply. Crawford Gold Project, as we mentioned, we'd been developing this up privately to go mining as per Rose Dam. We got fairly advanced into it, so the pre-feasibility study can be achieved fairly quickly in that Q1 quarter. We've done all the hard work to date privately, so there's not much left to do apart from putting an ore reserve around this, because as a privateer in Western Australia, we could just prove the economic viability to the state mining engineer. However, being a publicly listed company, we then actually really have to put a JORC reserve around this, and if you're going to actually get any debt, you've got to do the right thing and make it compliant. That's what we do. Well, the resource doesn't look too sexy, but if you can imagine focusing in on the best stuff at the moment in the oxide, you get a bit of an idea about what we think the potential mining stage 1 pit could be. Some technical stuff. Our 2023 drill program discovered Miranda, which is here. We've got extensions to the north-south. As I said, we've got really high heap leach recoveries, low consumable recoveries usage, and minimal crushing with the oxide layer. It's free dig. And any water that's there is fresh water. Now, I've got about 4 minutes left, so I'm going to cruise right along into the final project we'll talk about, which is for those battery metal people. Lithium. That's our boy Paddy standing out there at Ella's Rock. Now, I'll use that photo quite a lot as an illustration, not just of the vegetation, but the reason why no one's found anything out there before. There's nothing outcropping. These lithium targets sit under 15 metres of sand, beach sand, it's granite. It lies on the world-class lithium corridor between Wesfarmers Mount Holland and Alchem's Mount Catlin projects, and the 3 lithium anomalies cover a staggering 350 hectares. We've only scratched the surface. Here we are in the world. Right up around here, we've got Earl Grey, otherwise known as Mount Holland. Down around about where the laser pointer is, that'll be where Mount Catlin is. And we've got the gold and nickel Forestania trend runs around here, and then the lithium one comes down through here. There we go. These anomalies run to the northeast, south, southwest, as do the others in the area. Mount Catlin and Mount Holland, so it's following that same strike distance and trend. We've only carried out 2.2 line kilometres of that total 350 hectares with 277 targets. Now, I quoted them directly. I didn't state this myself, but they did say in the report that it was likely a world record for the size of the survey at the time. We got that through the ASX. I was pretty happy about that. So the three main targets are, back please. There we go. Hooper, Fitzgerald, and Bashay. There's a 12-kilometre line running down through here. We've only done, it's pretty hard to see on the screen, I guess, but we've only done a portion of the central bit of Bashay and Fitzgerald. We still haven't hit Hooper yet, so plenty more targets to come. So air core drilling is scheduled for the end of November. We will, our next set of news in conjunction with the Crawford Gold news stories will be at around about Q1 as well. So if you're interested in following the company, there's plenty of news to come out, and we'll have gold advanced PFS, and we'll have hopefully some great lithium results out at Elders Rock. Thank you very much. Yep, no, that's it.
Well done, that's very impressive. Now, you stand in the middle here, and in honour of the fact that this is your Virgin presentation.
Oh, yes.
Just a little bit down. Right, there's one for your website. Okay, you ready? All right, we'll try and make it look as attractive as we can. I know, I was just do my very best. All right, here we go. You ready? 3, 2, 1, everyone just give me a bit of a cheer behind. Great. Well done, last one. Best one, well done, good on you. Thank you so much, sir. Now, we're going to do a bit of a reset on the stage, and while we're resetting on the stage, I'm going to move down here and invite a special guest up the front. Dean Head, do you want to come and join me, mate? So this isn't on your program there, but I saw Dean, he's come in, he's actually made of stews, and I thought, oh, Dean's got this really interesting little project that he's working on. To most of us in the room, you won't have heard the name Dean Head, but it's a very well-known name in Hollywood. He is a director, he's a really well-known camera person, and he's also a writer. So he's written this book, and he's got a screenplay for it. And next year, Western Australia will once again be a hive of filming activity thanks to this man. Dean, do you want to tell everyone while they're setting up what this project is that you're doing, what the base is?
Thank you, Christine. Hi, everyone. And thanks to Stuart and Jackson for having me on. The reason the mining industry should know about the project I've created is because, in part, the Kids Adventure Story promotes mining and geology and space and planets information and some history and a lot of good moral messages, such as how girls can do it, and promotes women and their discoveries throughout history that have been skipped over because they weren't men, and a whole bunch of other good, wonderful stuff like metals on Earth are alien, born in space, like gold. And that's my dad at MGM in England. He worked in the film industry as well. That's different behind the scenes. Yeah, Jackie. And me, yeah. These are the films I've worked on. And all of this energy I've put into the Kids Adventure book. I have an Oscar-winning person coming over for it who is not an actor, but they're in special effects. And they're mates with Spielberg and Lucas. And there's a few other big surprises. There's a enormously famous music person involved in doing some of the music and coming for a cameo role in the film that I can't announce just yet. And it's good for you to know about this because it threads good moral messages all the way through the story. It's a bit of a mix between Harry Potter, Transformers, and Super 8. And the kids have to deal with evil aliens, and the aliens are stealing our minerals. And we have to work out why and how we can stop them.
They're laughing. Sounds familiar to some other people that are stealing our minerals, but that's okay.
The ebook is out now around the world, and probably next week the paper book will be out if Apple can fix a bug on Sunday, which we've booked together to work on. And we're also working on a Braille version and an audiobook version for the blind kids. And can you believe it's the first time the Braille Institute have been asked by anyone to create a Braille book that's not of their own doing?
Dane, we're going to leave it there, but you guys, I'm honoured that Dean has 2 minutes to actually speak to us. When you look at the calibre of what he's done in the past, we're very honoured to have you here with us. We're really grateful that you're made of Stewie, so we get the inside running. You can get your Christmas presents now, you can get books, you can get these books, tell the kids that you've met the man that's going to be making it, instrumental in making it, and it's here in WA. Have you cast for it already?
Not yet, that's coming, and it may be turned into a competition.
Excellent.
And everyone will come from WA first as much as possible, and if that doesn't work, we'll cast the net wider.
All right. We'll stick that QR code up on Vertical Events website. Can you flip back to that, James, for just 1 sec? So there's a QR code there. So if you put your cameras onto that one, you can download the information, then you can follow the journey as well. Dean Head, it's been an honour. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for the inside running.
Thank you, everyone.
Good on you. Now, you never know what you're going to get here, what there is that you might become invested in, and what little gems that we're going to be serving up. Now, when Dave Franklin first addressed us yesterday morning, cast your mind all the way back, he talked about the energy transition, EVs, and stated, what's the point of having all these electrical vehicles if the base load that we're using to recharge them isn't green? So with that in mind, our last presentation today is a panel presentation, Lithium and Uranium, can they work together? And the man in charge is Jackson. Please make him welcome to introduce everyone.
Thanks, Chrissy. But before I call up the panel members, and actually the panel members can make their way to the stage, Iggy, Cameron and Brandon, while they're making their way to the stage, I think that we as a crowd should absolutely congratulate Chrissy on the amazing job that she's done today and yesterday, but not just those 2 days. As I said, there's probably very few of you that were here yesterday morning when we did the introduction and opened the conference, and I mentioned up until this event, we had 300 presentations at an RIU or Vertical Events conference so far this year, which Chrissy has introduced every single one of them. She's now gone to 340. So well done, Chrissy. Outstanding job.
Thank you. And my knowledge is huge, my head is bigger. All right. Let me pass that along? All good. All right, team, let's settle in. We've got half an hour and I'll stay at the back with the microphone. If something you want to jump up and ask a question or jump in with, just pop your hand up.
Thanks, Chrissy. Now it's great to be able to host a panel. And when we were putting the RIU Resurgence conference together, we really noticed that, yes, we were getting a lot of interest from the lithium companies, and why wouldn't we? It's just a red hot commodity at the moment. But there was a bit of an initiative that I really wanted to draw back on the good old days of the Australian Uranium Conference, and we wanted to have an emphasis on uranium because it's all looking really good from that commodities perspective as well. So yesterday, some of you were here, we had at least near on 15 presentations in that uranium space, and Stewie and I were talking leading up to this conference. We thought, why not close the conference with a bit of a discussion about lithium uranium and how exciting the world looks going forward, because both of these commodities can have a great way of reducing the carbon emissions and making the environment such a better place. Then we thought, you know what, even better, let's also have the RIU Christmas party at the end. So once we've finished this discussion, we'll have a lot of content from these outstanding people to my left to go out and discuss and have a drink. And I'll do it again at the end, but just thank you so much, because there's so many people in this room who have been unbelievably supportive of Vertical Events and RIU, and we're coming off a pretty big year, so we're pretty pumped with how that's played out, but it can only play out that well if we have the respect and the commitment from the participants, whether you're a retiree, a sponsor, a presenter, an exhibitor. You all mean so much to us, so thank you. So moving forward, all three of these guys have presented, so I'll let them give themselves an introduction, and I want them just to give a brief background on where they've been since they started out in the industries that they're involved with. So kick it off to the left.
Afternoon, everybody. My name's Brandon Munro. I'm the CEO of Bannerman Energy. We're a uranium developer. We spoke yesterday. My background is originally economics and law, and I spent about a decade working in corporate law, mainly to do with capital markets, mergers and acquisitions, etc. Joined the uranium sector in 2009 and have had a really interesting journey that's led me to be quite involved in the World Nuclear Association along the way. So I spent 4 years as the chair of the WNA's demand working group. So you would have seen yesterday a number of World Nuclear Association charts. So we were the working group that were responsible for determining what global nuclear demand and therefore uranium demand would be across 3 different scenarios out to 2040. I can tell you it was a lot of fun because half of the room had the suppliers who thought it was going to skyrocket. The other half had the consumers who wanted to make sure it flatlined. So it was a much more of, it exercised my political skill far more than my economics background. Since then, I've been very privileged to be asked to join a body called the World Nuclear Association Director General's Advisory Council. And so that's a small group of people from around the world who advise the WNA board and also the Director General about global strategic issues that affect the nuclear power sector. And the sorts of things we'll be talking about today very much are in the wheelhouse for that body.
That's great. Iggy?
Hello everyone, Iggy Tan. I chair a company called Lithium Universe. I'm also CEO of a company called Alltech Batteries. I guess I've been known as the trailblazer in the lithium industry, where I was at Cavalier Resources and we built the Mount Cattlin spodumene mine as well as the Jiangsu lithium carbonate plant all those years ago. But I started in the lithium game in the mid-90s. I ran Greenbushes for a while and tried to commission the first lithium carbonate plant. So I'm here representing the lithium industry.
I can't compete with that, Jackson. I mean, I'm not as old as these guys, but what I could probably highlight is that, look, what I could probably highlight is just what I'm currently exposed to in Benchmark, which is that our clients include all the way from automakers, and our biggest client is one of the biggest automakers in Europe, all the way down to junior exploration companies, mining companies who are who are currently in the market, and that's all I'm doing is lithium. So for the last 3 years, those are the people that I've been speaking to and building those networks. So that's probably my relevant experience. Yeah.
Well, that's great to have you here. You've flown all the way from Melbourne to be part of this show. I know you had some other commitments, but we really appreciate the fact that Benchmark and yourself have committed to the RIU Resurgence conference as well as some of the other conferences that we've done together. So we appreciate the...
And yeah, can I say that some consultants and analysts out there that have had lots of practical experience, which is fair enough, fall out of touch very quickly in a market that's changing week by week.
So moving forward back to uranium, and what we can gather from particularly Brandon and Iggy is that they have committed to the commodity that they're in. And that's what we're excited about, and that's why they're on the panel. So you think back to 2009, you get into the uranium industry. It's pretty red hot then. What's the uranium price about that stage?
Well, it had dipped, it had gone as high as 136, come back significantly.
Financial crisis.
Because of the financial crisis, then leading to some question marks about the capacity to finance the expected rollout. And we were on our way back up to about $74 a pound before March 2011 stopped the party for us for a decade.
If you look at the macro signs of November 2010, where it was getting very exciting from a uranium point of view, and you look at the situation now, can you see some similarities?
Yeah, look, and I'd liken it probably a bit earlier to that because being a lawyer as I was in Perth in those days, a lot of our work was for uranium clients in 2006, 2007, when things got super bullish in equities markets. And there are a lot of similarities, but there's also some important differences. Some of the most strident movements in the uranium spot price during that early period were driven, on the one hand, by demand expectations growing, and that's in common with what we have now. The so-called nuclear renaissance was running hot. Finally, the world had realised that decarbonisation, or global warming as we called it then, was an important risk to be addressed, and nuclear power had its role to play. Greenpeace were very seriously considering whether they even dropped their opposition to nuclear power at the very highest echelons of that organisation. So there was a lot of a transformation in the view of the role that nuclear power needed to play after Chernobyl was well and truly in the rear-view mirror. So lots of similarities with what we've got today, of course. I think what was different though is there wasn't a particularly fragile supply story. Yes, there'd been a lot of underinvestment over a long period of time, and yes, the actual big spikes in the uranium price were caused by concern about the big development of the day, Cigar Lake, having flooding issues and technical issues that they needed to resolve with freeze walls in the end. But the market itself perceived ample supply. And that's very different to today when we see, for example, using the World Nuclear Association numbers, we see a very substantial opening deficit over the next 2 decades, which is very likely to grow even further without prolonged, persistent market signals that incentivise not only the current stock of projects to come in over the next 20 years, but a very substantial exploration exercise around the world. The other big difference is, back in 2006, 2007, we lacked one key factor that's going to really drive the market today, and that is a highly liquid investor-based market vehicle in the form of the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. There were physical investors, there were a couple of the bigger banks were very active at that stage, and that contributed to the dramatic downturn once the uranium price peaked. That's why that uranium price graph looks like a spike, and it comes down so sharply because they needed to quickly unwind their positions. So whilst there was secondary investing back in those days by financial players, they didn't have a vehicle like what Sprott Physical Uranium Trust is, or what Yellowcake is like, or some of the other ones. And the major difference is they've got the capacity to add serious kerosene to the fire in a way that the banks weren't able to back in that period of time. But secondly, they're far more stable. So the utilities aren't looking at the pounds that have been hoovered up by Sprott over the last 2 years and thinking, well, we know what happened in 2007. They're just going to get regurgitated straight back into the market, and we're going to hold our hands out to catch it then. They understand that, yes, there might be some leakage into the market over time, but these are vehicles that are going to be locking up those pounds substantially over the full length of the next cycle. So I think when you look at that together, the view that I have, and certainly the colleagues that collectively spoke to that last week when we had a global industry conference, the view is that the setup for uranium and therefore nuclear power right now is firstly far more sustainable than what we had back in 2006, 2007. It's based a lot more on fundamentals. And thirdly, therefore, it's likely to be sharper and a better ride for investors, both in terms of the trajectory, but also the longevity of it.
Sounds very exciting from a uranium point of view. Iggy, in a similar take, you know, your earlier days at Galaxy, what was the lithium thematic? What was the market like? And how do you see it different today?
Yeah, so maybe I can just comment on uranium before I talk about lithium. I think uranium has a bad rap. It hasn't recovered from the Fukushima, particularly in the younger generation. And there is no one voice that talks to the world about the benefits of nuclear power. Nuclear power is the most renewable energy. And yet, for the younger people, they don't get it. On the lithium side, we have one person that actually is the voice of lithium batteries, and that guy is Elon Musk. And he has moved the lithium industry and lithium batteries because he's out there, he's so popular. The uranium industry needs someone like that to shift the thinking. So until you shift that thinking, it's going to be a uphill battle to get these nuclear plants up and running. I mean, yes, countries like China where there's less, but now with the new technology, there's smaller nuclear plants, it is the most renewable power. So my point is, I think as the group, you really need to change the view of the generation coming up.
Don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah, and on the lithium side, the demand for lithium hasn't changed. There's always been the growth, and particularly now we're probably in the exponential growth with EVs and grid storage. So that's an area that a lot of people haven't focused on, is grid storage. If you think about the batteries required to stabilize the grid and shift the energy from the day to the nighttime, there are a lot of batteries. And even Elon Musk said the growth of the battery division will be from grid storage, not from EVs. So he's already recognized where that growth is.
Before we get to Cameron, I just want to, Brendan, you and I were talking, and Elon Musk, he's shown a little bit of interest in nuclear. So that could help in a way?
Oh, definitely. Like it's not his job to be a nuclear spokesperson. I wish he would. But he's been very outspoken that we're crazy as a species to be shutting down nuclear power plants right now. He's very outspoken about the need for new nuclear. He speaks very much along the same lines as you, Iggy.
Yeah.
And part of the reason is that he understands that for the electric vehicle revolution to reach its potential, it has to have baseload power, and it has to be clean baseload power. Otherwise, the benefits of an electric vehicle aren't as demonstrable if you're running off coal or gas as your power source.
So, I was talking to my kids, and, they're young adults, and they obviously are very keen on the green transition. And I said to them, do you realize that the electric vehicle has double the CO2 footprint than a normal vehicle? And they were shocked. And they said, what do you mean? Well, I said, to make an electric car, which is batteries, lithium, we've got to dig up lithium, refine lithium, cobalt, copper, nickel. The CO2 footprint is double. So after 10 years, you're now at the same point as buying an ICE vehicle. They were shocked. And I said, well, do you know, to meet the demand for EVs, mining has to increase by 10,000%. And they said, what? Well, where do you think all these materials in batteries come from? The mining industry needs to increase at that quantum. And yet, most countries are anti-mining.
Well, Iggy, what we should do is maybe power the mining industry by nuclear power plants.
There you go.
So I'm only a bit younger than these guys. I've been in the industry since 2002, so that's 20 odd years. And I think generally the way that these cycles work is history on repeat now and again. And that's great that we've been able to hear from Brendan talking about 2009 uranium to now and the cycle that's been through. Iggy probably dates back into the 90s when it comes to lithium. But the beauty about Cameron is benchmark are forward thinkers. So he's going to tell us where the lithium thematic's going in the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and the fact that there's no way that supply will be able to get anywhere near the potential demand, hopefully.
Well, sure. Look, I mean, we have a duty to communicate that there is a significant deficit emerging in the future, and that we should encourage new projects to come online. At the same time, we cop some flack from people to say, oh, we've seen that deficit again and again. Of course, that's never going to emerge, and of course, yes, that's right. It is theoretical. Supply will rise to meet that demand, but that's the point. That's why we're here to say that if you don't come in and fill that demand gap, then demand will be destroyed, and it will be. Actually, before lithium, I was in the mineral sands industry. And there was an event where zircon prices went to unsustainable highs, and there was thrifting in tiles, and zircon never recovered from that. That amount of thrifting is permanent, and I can see there was permanent damage done to the lithium industry when prices went to $80 a kilogram, even where it may have only been a loading of the gun. There might not have been a pulling of the trigger yet, but with sodium ion, a lot of plans had been made, and only say 70 gigawatt hours of that is 2033, say 10 years from now, is probably a solid plan from cell makers that know what they're doing, and only a portion of that will actually make it into the market. But at the same time, it's really increased everybody's interest in sodium ion, and now we've seen announcements from Northvolt and others, BYD, and that they're going to start using sodium ion, and so it's done a lot of potential damage to lithium demand. But in saying that, it was like a first warning, like, let's not let lithium prices go that high again, and that was somewhat the result of the nascency of the industry. We've got double-digit demand growth. We've got a very young industry. We've got very immature ways of selling and buying, and markets have not matured yet. But I think that will all become a lot more boring in the future, and we'll see a lot less excitement, and which is probably a good thing. Prices will be a bit more stable. We'll understand the cost curve a lot more in the next few years. Quotation periods will stabilize, things like that, like boring things like that will all pan out, I think. And I think that's a good thing for the industry. It's stability and prosperity for all lithium projects that are wanting to get into the market, right? It's not going to, but there will always be boom and bust in the mining industry, of course.
Do you think the current price is where it should be as a sustainable price?
That's a good question. I mean, from our point of view, when we calculate an incentive price, we use an IRR of 15% for a spodumene project, and that turns out to be around $1,800 a tonne to incentivize new productions. You need to make a return on your investment, of course. And we do a similar calculation for chemical prices. So in a roundabout way, your question is potentially yes, you could see this as a sustainable price at the moment.
So yeah, current spodumene, $2,000 a tonne?
Sure,
Yeah.
why not? Yep.
When we built Mount Cattlin, the price was $260 a tonne. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
as Chris Allison said not long ago, the price of spodumene was $500. So $2,000 is probably not a bad price.
And even maybe 1,500, but we're seeing a lot of projects with very high strip ratios and all sorts of bad, maybe difficult, let's say, projects out there. So, and very high upfront costs, and we have to get over to, yeah.
So Brandon, as we live in Western Australia, we don't get the support news on the small modular reactors. They don't like to talk about them over here, but most of the people in the audience would have heard about them. But just in a very brief summary, can you just talk about how that technology is meant to work and how it could have a real positive effect on uranium going forward?
Yeah, so I'd say that start with the positive effect, and then I can break down what that really means. First of all, small modular reactors, their biggest effect in the medium term on the nuclear power thematic and therefore uranium demand is they're a very effective way of recasting the public's perception of nuclear power. And when people realise that they're open to small modular reactors and they become more familiar with it, what usually happens is they then come to understand that the conventional reactors are entirely safe, they're entirely economic, they're a very, very effective technology for delivering power. So sometimes you just need to get into people's perspectives somehow, and SMRs do that, to enable public acceptance to open more generally. Now, where they're particularly interesting is, apart from certain markets that wouldn't accept conventional reactors, Australia being one, but would hopefully in the future be open to SMRs, they also reach into different applications that a gigawatt reactor just isn't suitable for. So we're talking about remote applications. So there's one that's been commissioned for an Air Force base in Alaska at the moment. Fairly small, it's only a few megawatts, but it displaces diesel, right? If you're going to move the dial as quickly as possible on a one-for-one basis, if you can displace diesel electrical production, then that's the biggest single win that you'll get. So there's examples that Russia has already deployed, which
I want to ask you, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to question this. Could you put an SMR in Collie and attach it to the power plant there and then stream nuclear energy out that way?
So that is the ideal use case for small modular reactors. So you're ahead of the curve, Jackson. So, for example, there's a think tank in the US that has identified a high priority list of 300 targets where they want to take a mid-sized coal-fired power station and basically change the heat generator from coal to small modular reactors. Now, the reason that is massively useful is, first of all of the grid infrastructure's there. We don't need the 17 billion that our current government wants to spend just making grids. But more importantly, the community stays intact. 66% of that workforce can immediately, with a quick radiation training type bridging, they can continue effectively doing their job, because you've got your heat source, but then you've got turbines and all of the other things that go on with power production. So most of those people can just stay there. And a more recent study showed that about 90% of a coal-fired power station workforce can be retrained sufficiently that they can stay in the workforce. But then you've got the next layer of benefit, which is to the local industry, which has grown up on on-demand, baseload, consistent priced power. If you switch from a coal-fired power station that you turn off to, let's say, a mix of solar 100 kilometres away, wind 200 kilometres away, a bunch of lines, someone in the system has to become an energy trader to try and stabilise those electricity prices. And the problem is, with the amount of planning we've got in Australia at the moment, that someone's going to end up being the end user businesses. And they're going to be told, well, look, if you can use your power at this time of the day, then it'll be cheaper. And so people are flat out trying to save their business from all of the other economic pressures that we've got in the world. They're going to have to become, in one form or another, electricity traders. Now, there's a bunch of other applications as well. You've got potentially into the future nuclear shipping, which has been operated at a naval level for decades already. You've got district heating, so that's in cold climates where they basically pipe heat out, as they do at the moment with thermal sources. You've got industrial heating, you've got hydrogen production, and other more niche applications as well. And so for that reason, there's actually 84 different developers of SMRs at various stages in the development cycle right now.
Where do we sit in regards to, in the world, which country will be the first to implement, do you think?
So China and Russia already are implementing SMRs. So Russia's the leader, and they have been in civil nuclear for the last decade across the spectrum. And they've got micro reactors in place, small modular reactors, and then the next version of technology, which is a breeder reactor, which basically, to Iggy's point, operates on spent fuel. So that recycles uranium in the way that it makes power. China have demonstration reactors, and they're building their first 100 megawatt SMR, the Linlong. And then it's my belief that the first Western country to be out there with commercially available SMRs will in fact be Canada, soon followed by the US and the UK.
I was just trying to see if Chrissy was still in the audience, but I think, oh, she's having a rest. Oh, she is, she's popped up. So does anyone from the crowd want to start participating and ask questions? We're so lucky to have Cameron over from Benchmark. We've got Iggy with 30 or 40 years of lithium, and Brandon as well. Yep, shoot away.
Jeff Marley, what's happening with the waste? Because as you just mentioned that some of it can be recycled, but no one in this period, the last 2 days, has mentioned anything about waste. It's all a good story. What about the bad story?
So it's also a good story, but let me unpack that for you. It's the right question to ask, and some people regard it as the Achilles heel of nuclear power, but I would actually dispute that when you fully understand it. And I can talk with some authority. Before I started to commit my professional life to the nuclear power industry, that was my last final piece of due diligence. And I went to the Onkelo facility in Finland. That's where they've now completed a long-term high-level radioactive storage facility. It's the benchmark for the world. So I went there and learnt that, first of all, in the right place, the geological stability, we can look back over 1 billion years to know that those rocks aren't going anywhere going forward. So anything the world can throw at those rocks, it's had the chance to over the last 1 billion years. So the rocks aren't moving. The actual waste is stored 400 metres down into that facility. The rods are placed into initially a 5-ton copper casket, and copper's been shown over thousands of years to have extremely limited degrading. They dug up artefacts out of the bottom of the Mediterranean that have been there for 5,000 years, and they're perfect condition. Then it's encased in steel, then it's taken underground and packed into a thick bed of kaolin clay, and then they infill. And I was with an engineer and he said, you know, I look at that design and you're infilling it like you're going to want to dig it out again. And they looked at him and they said, well, that's exactly what we're going to do, but we've got to make sure we've got a foolproof plan in the meantime, because they know that the waste will in the future be recycled. So I'm 100% confident that not only do we have the engineered solutions, but we now have, at least at a couple of places in the world, the real solutions for storing the highest level, most toxic radioactive waste for the length of its half-life. But the other point that I'd make, and this is why it should be a good news story, not a bad news story, in the nuclear industry, it's the only form of energy that we make as humanity where every bit of that waste is captured at source, put in caskets, treated in the way that it's treated, and ultimately, in Finland's case, put in the Onkello long-term storage facility. The waste is not put into rivers, it's not put into the atmosphere, it's not put into landfill. It's dealt with, it's captured, we know where it is. There's an enormous level of international monitoring because of the IAEA. So it's not talked about it enough, but it should actually be celebrated in our industry rather than feared.
Another question? Yep.
Hi, Gordon from Catalysts. We build virtual data rooms. I believe the Australian Labor government may have purchased 7 submarines, nuclear submarines, and they didn't go to the public and say, what do you think about that? How do you think that will play out in the future if we kind of hypocritically have nuclear submarines, but we have no nuclear power?
Before we answer that question, I do have to go to a meeting.
Sorry.
But
can we just thank Cameron?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
But Dr. Lithium, thanks, Dr. I'm not sitting up there. Good grief, I'm a casual observer.
So Chrissy, how are we going to deal as a community?
Go and try me.
Yeah, so look, AUKUS is fascinating because out of the blue, seemingly, we've got bipartisan support for a vital nuclear industry, and not even the civilian nuclear industry, which is normally the easier entry point, but this is propulsion for military purposes. Now, to be clear for everyone, these are not nuclear armed submarines, they're just using nuclear propulsion. Now, when you look at the benefits, it becomes one of the clearest no-brainers that I have ever seen in my professional life. Because a diesel-powered submarine is incapable of having 95% of the strategic capability of a nuclear-powered submarine. A diesel-powered submarine can only go under for a few days at a time. A nuclear-powered submarine can stay undetected underwater for 8 months at a time, even longer. They don't even bother to slow down because there's no point not operating at full tilt. There's a think tank out of Canberra which connected with, I think, ANU, but I could be wrong. And so they did some analysis. What would a nuclear power submarine be able to do if it suddenly had to make its way to Taiwan? So a nuclear power submarine could go down in Stirling, make it to Taiwan in 3 or 4 days, and then pop up undetected and do anything that it needs to do. A diesel-powered submarine would need to stop to refuel a dozen times to get there, and it'd take it a couple of months. Like, that is useless. The fact that as a country we were even prepared to go down the path of buying diesel-powered submarines says to me that unfortunately we're a society that's reached a very immature level of scientific understanding with what nuclear power can deliver. Now, as an aside, it was always planned with the French procurement that at the last minute they could quickly switch in a nuclear-powered propulsion mechanism. So even when it was committed to with the French. They knew that hopefully good sense would prevail.
Yeah, but doesn't these nuclear submarines help your cause? Because it starts to change the acceptance. So suddenly, okay, we're used to nuclear subs, but one nuclear sub can power the whole of Bunbury, right?
Yeah, and sorry,
And
that's
so
a good point.
then there's the acceptance start to change as opposed to trying to do it the community way.
Exactly, and what's interesting is in our sector, we've always tried to stay as far away from military applications as we possibly can. Like there's none of the uranium that is produced or will be produced by any of the companies listed on ASX or the TSX will ever go into military purposes. It's only sold for civilian purposes. So we've always tried to stay well away from it. But interestingly, what it's done is it's created a debate around nuclear power. It's created a debate, to your question, about, well, where are these nuclear engineers going to come from? Where are the nuclear physicists going to come from? Do we need to start building civilian nuclear power capacity so that we've actually got an industry that can then feed into the subs? And I think that between the political cooperation that this has engendered and the thought process about how do we find and develop the people for this industry, I think that has opened up a little gap that will help this country come to terms with the inevitable requirement for nuclear power.
Chrissy loves to have that say with the ding ding, but well done, Chrissy. And thanks, Iggy. Thanks, Brandon. Really appreciate your input. It's been outstanding. I'm sure the audience would agree that they've learnt a lot. We look forward to the day that we're all driving electric cars powered by nuclear, and hopefully a lot of it's coming out of Lake Johnson. Lithium, that is. So thanks again, everyone. Come out and enjoy a drink on behalf of Stuart McDonald and Simon Hadfield and the RIU team. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next year, the RIU Explorers Conference, 13th, 14th, 15th February.